Hello and welcome, friends, to the very first episode of Live Mindfully with Laurie Moore. Now, before we jump into today's episode, let's all take a moment to center. Wherever you are, straighten your back, relax your shoulders, and take the deepest breath in that you've taken all day. Oh, I'm just always so blown away by how good I feel just from taking a deep breath in. So today's episode is all about mindful living, what it is and what it isn't. And if you took the time to read the blurb for this podcast, you would have seen that if you Google mindfulness, you'll receive over 600 million results. Now, I'm a big fan of Googling. Like right before I started to record this podcast, I Googled how to record a podcast. But if I'm honest, when I started reading through all of the different versions that Google offered for mindfulness, I kind of walked away feeling more confused than educated. So to start, I think it's helpful to discuss what mindfulness isn't. I've read definitions of mindfulness that include the following statements. Mindfulness is always living in the present moment. Mindfulness is a type of meditation. Mindfulness is a therapeutic technique used to calmly accept one's feelings, thoughts, and bodily sensations. Mindfulness is a spiritual practice. Now, here's the thing. If any one of those statements resonated with you, then that's fine. Mindfulness can be all of those things, or more accurately, all of those things can form a part of mindfulness. But those things do not define mindfulness. Now, to give a little context, I have studied mindfulness for a really long time. I'm fascinated by the body-mind-spirit complex, and in particular, how mindfulness impacts our mental state. And the definition that most resonated with me was from Headspace, which said, mindfulness is the quality of being present and fully engaged with whatever we're doing at that moment. And that's it really. It really is that simple. Mindfulness is simply a state of mind, and all it really means is becoming aware of the present moment, whatever might be happening in that present moment for you, whether that be reminiscing about the past, planning for the future, or this exact moment right now. So at this point you may be thinking, well, if it is that simple, how come it's so hard? And as someone who practices mindfulness daily, I agree with you. It is hard. And it's hard because we are always being pulled out of our presence by someone or something. So let me give you an example, a very current example. In sitting down to formulate this episode, I have been interrupted 4 times by my children. I've received 7 emails and 2 Instagram notifications, and the internet dropped out for 15 minutes, which never happens. But of course, when I'm trying to do something, that's when it happens. We are constantly being interrupted. And if we break my example down, we can see that there are 4 clear distractions. The first one is people, aka my children. People are always interrupting our mindfulness, and we are always interrupting someone else's mindfulness. The second one is multitasking. Instead of solely focusing on what I'm doing right now, I'm also trying to be a mother, I'm trying to read emails, and I'm trying to respond to text messages. The third is my mind. Because I am being distracted and interrupted, I am becoming frustrated. And then my mind begins to create this narrative that my life is hard because I can't ever do what I want to do when I want to do it, and all these annoying things keep happening to me. And finally, technology. The emails, the notifications, and the internet died. Arrgh. Now I know what you're thinking. This could also be called life. And it is life. But the problem is when we're experiencing these things, we have zero tolerance and acceptance. And because we feel like these things are happening to us, we don't feel like we have any control over our experience. And that's all great to be aware of, but it doesn't actually change things for us. So I have a couple of tips or things that you can do to help increase your mindfulness throughout the day. Step 1, when you're trying to get something done and your kids are home, lock them out of the house. I am, of course, totally kidding. Don't ever do that. Your children are precious, precious beings. And once you become more mindful, you'll have so much more presence for them. All right, seriously, number 1, limit distractions. This is by far the easiest one to achieve. You may not know this, but your phone has a function on it called Do Not Disturb, and it will literally pause all notifications. So when you are doing something that requires your full attention, or you are with someone and you want to give them your full attention, enable Do Not Disturb. You can also activate Do Not Disturb or turn off notifications on a computer or laptop. And if you work in a place where it is a big distraction, perhaps you're in an open plan office, see when you've got a task that you need to complete, if you can find a quieter place to work within the office. And if this isn't an option for you, perhaps consider talking to your boss about working from home sometimes. Number 2, reflect. At the end of today, sit down and look at your day and question how present you feel you were throughout the day. Were you jumping from one task to the other without any general thought? Were you sitting across from your friend at lunch or your children in the afternoon thinking of the millions and millions of things that you still needed to get done? And if this was you, don't be hard on yourself. Just take a moment to reflect on the day and see if there are ways that you can improve your presence tomorrow. Now, I'm a big fan of research and I'm a big fan of science. The Harvard Business School completed a study back in 2014 that showed the greatest way to increase productivity, self-confidence, and the ability to complete a task was to reflect at the end of each day. And this doesn't need to be a big thing. It can be. You can grab a pen and paper and you can journal on it if you'd like. But if you don't want to commit that kind of time to it, you don't have to. You can simply take a few minutes at the end of the day before you're going to bed to have a think about what the day went like for you and whether or not you feel as though you had any mindfulness throughout the day. And take some time to contemplate that and think of ways and strategies that you might be able to change that tomorrow. Number 3, be organized. This is my favorite one because when I feel organized, I feel in control of my day. And when I feel in control of my day, my stress levels are down. And when my stress levels are down, I find it really easy to mindfully move through each day. So my suggestion is to take time at the end of each day to write your to-do list for the following day. Wake Forest University, among others, have shown a decrease in mistakes and stress by simply writing a to-do list each day. Another thing that you can do is block time out in your calendar to achieve your to-do list. And make sure your calendar is up to date, including all of your social engagements and anything that you need to set reminders for. My calendar, I review that daily, weekly, and monthly, and I have everything in there. And trust me, you'll never forget another thing. Benjamin Franklin famously said, "By failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail." And finally, set realistic expectations. This one applies to you and to others. Trying to get anything like writing content done when my kids are home is a big no-no for me. Even if I ask them to give me 20 minutes to focus, I am still splitting my focus 50-50 because I'm always listening out, first and foremost, to make sure that they're safe, and secondly, to make sure they're not raiding the lolly jar or the pantry. Now, research tells us that we really only have the potential to complete 3 big tasks each day, and in order to achieve these tasks, we must reduce our distractions and our interruptions where we can. To achieve this, we will need to be firm with our boundaries and get comfortable with saying no. Oh, that's a real tough one. And we also need to be realistic about what we actually can get done in a day. Now, I'm a parent. I plan my day out the day before. I have my little to-do list, and I'm really psyched about my next day and what I'm going to get done. And inevitably, I will wake up and there might be a sick child, and my whole day's thrown out. As every parent knows, that's it. You're not going to get anything done that day. So you need to be realistic. If I continue to push forward with that to-do list, I'm just going to create a lot of pain and anger and frustration within myself. We need to remember that we live in a modern world. We are not monks sitting in a temple with many spare hours of the day. In order to survive, we have to multitask some of the time. We have smartphones and laptops and bosses. We're going to be disrupted and we're going to be distracted every day. But we need to work ways in to limit that exposure by taking mindful steps. And my advice would be to not overwhelm yourself by trying to do all the things that I've spoken about. Pick the one you think you can implement the quickest and easiest and just try it for a week. And just to recap, the 4 tips are: limit distractions. Number 2, reflect. Number 3, be organized. Number 4, set realistic expectations. To close out today, I wanted to leave you with a quote by the Sri Lankan Buddhist monk Bhante Hanapola Gunaratana. Mindfulness gives you time. Time gives you choices. Choices skillfully made lead to freedom. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode. If you enjoyed it, please share it with your family and friends. Subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. My next episode will drop next Wednesday. Until then, take good care of yourself.